Hi, my name is Laura Sahr, and I teach third grade in a gifted and talented cluster classroom with 12 of my 22 students being identified as gifted and talented. We do have a teacher whose main focus is in GT instruction, who pushes in for 45 minutes 3 days a week. And over the past few years, our GT program has been changing from a pull-out method to a push-in. And last year, our previous GT teacher took over as our GT coordinator position. There are 5 elementary buildings in our district, and this year all went to a clustering model created by Purdue University. And in the building I'm in, we have 2 GT cluster classrooms out of the 4 third grade classrooms, and along with fourth grade having 2 GT classrooms with 1 non-GT classroom. Our students are only identified as gifted and talented by a COGAT test, and they can be retested using the COGAT test if they score in the 90th percentile on the MAP test in their math and their reading. On COGAT, some students qualify under only one skill, and then others can qualify under more than one skill. Our current GT program currently only provides GT instruction in the form of literacy through the use of our GT teacher. Math instruction for higher level students comes in the form of Continental Math League instruction, which is given by a parent volunteer for only about 20 minutes once a week, using 6 questions on a worksheet. Typically, I have students who qualify for GT services under a quantitative or verbal score, so it's a little frustrating when they may not have as high of literacy scores when math is really their strong suit, but yet that's still how they receive their services. The district rationale for students only receiving literacy instruction from the GT teacher is that when students get to middle school, there's not an option for those gifted students to have more challenging literacy courses, but there are math courses. With all of these things to consider, my question is, how might we provide gifted and talented students with curriculum that is both challenging and appropriate? So my first concept that I focused on were programs and models. STEM is one thing that came up in articles by Daly and Robinson with a few others. STEM has a lot of inquiry-based learning where students learn through hands-on activities. STEM helps students learn problem solving and critical thinking skills that can be transferable skills in life beyond school. And then with the job market changing so much, these skills are really needed as lifelong skills. There are many different types of models, but most focus on some form of inquiry-based learning. Some models discussed by Callahan include the Tomlinson's differentiated instruction model, Renzulini and Rice school-wide enrichment model, Kaplan's depth and complexity model, and integrated model CLEAR. For implementing the models, some schools use push-in, pull-out, whole gifted classes, and gifted schools. Most that I read about were some version of a push-in or pull-out at the elementary level. Not many were solely gifted classrooms. So Yeseldike, and then Bland, Krinos, Kiskanis, Robinson and Puck, Haslam and O'Darty, and Van Der, they all discuss those different types of models as far as some being push-in, pull-out, total gifted classrooms, and so on. The qualities of these gifted programs include a lot of inquiry-based learning, self-directed learning, having students set goals and go for depth in learning, not just pushing ahead in skills. Dove and Diskovich also focus on reflective thinking and processes being social. The social aspect is something that not all of them focus on, but I feel is very important. Callahan also touches on it as times as far as social being important. Van Der focuses on the opposite, where students seeking out learning independently, but by using inquiry strategies, students are learning about things that they want to learn about and are more frequently motivated to learn. My second concept is collaboration. Oxner and Riley talk about relationships. These relationships are ones that teachers have with each other, students with teachers, and students with other students. Teachers need to build relationships with students in order to help differentiate curriculum, and students need to build relationships and learn how to work with others. Just as a lifelong skill, they won't always be able to work independently, so they need to know how to communicate. Anderson discusses stakeholders. Oftentimes we focus on our classroom having meaning to us and our students, but there are many other people involved as far as seeing value in our students being successful. In most classes, you have administration, the students, the parents, the teachers, that all have some part in wanting our students to succeed. I see peer support as a subsection kind of relationships. Teachers building relationships with each other is important to help build strategies of what to use with students. Robinson and Puck tell us how important it is for teachers to support each other in development of curriculum. Students provide another way. Students need to have peer relationships and need to work with each other in order to build social skills and provide another way of learning something. Sometimes a teacher may explain things in several different ways, but a student may not understand it. But once a peer explains it or discusses it with them, it may just make more sense. So Bland, Krinos, and Kitskasanis talk about how it is important for students to have peer relationships with students that are similarly skilled. By clustering at the building I work in, that is definitely one thing that we're doing, is having students who are similarly skilled together. My third topic is inquiry-based learning and choice. This is a concept I view as one of the most valuable after researching. Learning needs to be more than just memorizing facts and processes. In the job market, many jobs don't need facts or processes because they are turning to computers. Jobs are needing more and more people that can problem solve and work independently or with others. Ochsner points out that relationships are very important with inquiry-based learning so that teachers can differentiate lessons for students in order to meet their interests and learning styles for inquiry-based learning. Van Der goes on to point out that relationships are important for students working together so that they can ask peers or a teacher for help. So they need to have those relationship skills in order to communicate with each other. And then choice is another important part of inquiry-based learning. Students are more interested in topics if they have a choice of what they are working on. One problem Van Der points out is that how very little time schools give our students to work on choice-based problems. Haslam and O'Doherty even breaks it down to books where choice is important, but still it's important for students to have specific types of reading that they must do and just really have a balance. So they may have a choice as far as genre, but they may not have a choice as far as genre. They may need to pick nonfiction, but they do have a choice as far as which nonfiction they use in their research. The trick is to find a balance of choice within a given topic. So, and then goals and questioning is my third part of this one. It isn't just enough to have students do inquiry-based learning. They need to have goals to achieve what they're doing while they're learning. Robinson and Puck point out that it is important to have a question in mind when working on inquiry-based learning. What is the plan that you are trying to prove? Goals have to have students identify success or identify that they need to keep working. Van Der, Dove, and Zitskovich point out that students should be setting their own goals, planning the process, and reflecting on their progress. They can have help to ensure that the plan is at their instructional level, but it's important for students to have a large stake in the project. Kishkani and Vahid and Osdheimer emphasize the point that inquiry-based learning has a strong creative aspect to it, and it promotes skills that students can use in other areas of life. My fourth concept is curriculum. The district I work in, there isn't a curriculum for gifted students at the elementary level. This causes gifted and talented to look different from building to building. Two helpful things that I found in my research were that Callahan, Moon, and O pointing out that there are gifted standards that most schools don't use. I'm not sure how those standards align with the Minnesota state standards, but I feel it is worth looking into. It was also good to see Van Deur's article that is actually mentioned all the resources that students can use for helping achieve their goals, as far as you don't have to only use the internet or a book or your teacher. You can use other adults, the internet, books, newspaper articles, your peers. It's important to use all resources that you have. Differentiation is probably on the same level for me in importance as inquiry-based learning. Inquiry-based learning can't really work without differentiation. There are many different ways to differentiate. It can be done through pacing, depth of a topic, varying curriculum, student interest, student learning styles, and use of technology, among other ways. So all of these authors here, Yesseldike, Haslam, and O'Darty, Van Deur, Dove, and Ziskovich, and then Callahan, really all mention all of these different methods. And it's important that students and teachers, more students, use a method that works best for their students. This year I have a very quirky, independent, high-energy group, where last year and other previous years I've had groups that could really work well with others and really focus in. So it's important to use something that works for your students. However, the main common theme in curriculum is that it needs to provide a challenge for students through goals, depth, and pacing. Robinson mentions that goals for gifted students are often very vague, and goals should be appropriate for students. I was surprised to see that Daly was one of the only ones who pointed out that integrated units are a way to incorporate large variety of learning when there seems to be very little time, which I think that's a problem for most of us. Those teaching gifted students should be also aware that just because a student is gifted doesn't mean that they are necessarily gifted in all areas. It is important to keep their strengths and weaknesses in mind when designing curriculum. There are often times where moving on to skills beyond grade level is appropriate, and other times where diving deeper into skills is a better fit. Gifted students do typically learn at a faster rate of speed, but depth can provide a challenge that is needed in order to motivate them to continue learning. Tasks should be very purposeful and not just busy work that takes away from the meaning of the work. And then my fifth concept is the teacher role. Teachers' main area of providing gifted instruction often kind of can be confusing, where some aren't quite sure what their role would be, especially within a lot of an inquiry-based learning. One main part is awareness. Teachers need to be aware of how to best provide instruction for gifted students. I was aware that there are some types of gifted training, but I didn't know that there were some states that actually require it until reading that from Callahan, Moon, and O in their article. Even with training, it is still important for teachers to be able to learn from other places to continue to improve, as Versen mentions with the article on twice exceptional students, focusing on those that have dyslexia. Bland, Krinos, and Kiskasanis, Robinson, Daly, Hughes, and Kosabish, and then Anderson all focus on really continuing to work on your skills even if you already feel that you're being successful. Teachers' main areas of providing instruction for gifted students often comes in the form of providing feedback and developing student tasks, where Yesseldike said that teachers need to provide instruction based on students' needs and providing them opportunities to dig deeper into standards, where Robinson and Puck encourage student conversation with peers, and it's important since gifted students often feel more comfortable talking with adults, as Vendier points out. So it's important to help them, as a teacher, help build that relationship between peer and teachers and peer-to-peer communication. Diezman and Wafters also want teachers to keep in mind that if students are struggling with a topic, it is important to support students without reducing the complexity of a problem. Even in the event of a computer not working, it can be a great problem-solving opportunity for a student to really dig in and figure out why it doesn't work, as Zitchkovich and Dove use as one possible example of problem solving that may not come from curriculum. Identification is my sixth concept. The main way that students are identified as gifted or talented is through standardized testing in most districts. That's the district I work in identifies students by using the COGAT. Other standardized testing used include state testing and intelligence testing, as Callahan, Moon, and O, and then Callahan in this article as well, and then Kashkani and Vahid talk about, it depends on the state and the school which type of standardized testing they use. It's also important to keep in mind those twice exceptional students that may be gifted in one area, but it may not be noticed because they may have a learning disability in another area. So it's important to really know our students' strengths and weaknesses. And then Callahan, Moon, Kashkani, and Vahid point out that there are other methods of identifying students as gifted. Some include teacher nomination, teacher rating, peer nomination, parent nomination, grades, creativity testing, portfolios, or a combination of them. It really depends. For me, I'm kind of stuck where, I want to have a clear idea of what is acceptable or a line to show what is gifted and not. But there's some students that it's just kind of shocking how they don't make it, where this would be a really good way to help them be included. Especially, it does kind of bother me that sometimes these tests, they may have a bad day, and that one bad day keeps them out of something that would be really beneficial for them. So in conclusion, the main important themes that I found were that inquiry-based learning really needs student choice. Teachers need to get to know their students in order to differentiate curriculum based on students' likes, learning styles, and abilities. Differentiation should also include opportunities for student choice. It's really important to get to know our students, not just the ones that are outgoing. Sometimes you might need to try and have a conversation with those shy ones more than they may be comfortable with, and eventually they should hopefully warm up. It's important to look for what is appropriate to add depth to a topic, not just continue on with future curriculum. This year with our math curriculum, it's really stood out that story problems, and I can add a lot of depth through those to really challenge my gifted students. Student work that goes beyond typical classwork should have meaning attached to the goals that reinforce that the work is to continue learning, not just busy work. If a student has just what they view as busy work, they're not going to be as motivated to do it. There are many models that help support gifted learners. What is used depends on the classroom, student learning styles, and curriculum. And then this project overall, my impact on my design thinking solution, I need to provide more opportunities for inquiry-based learning connected to curriculum in my classroom. It's kind of daunting to think about, but I view it as something that it may take a few years to slowly build it all up in order to have inquiry-based learning over all areas of my instruction. There's a need to differentiate curriculum to provide depth in order to challenge students. This is something where I think if I do a lot of front loading, then being able to reuse it hopefully in the future will be meaningful. And then lastly, I need to just continue to build relationships with students in order to provide opportunities for learning that connects more to their interests. There are some difficult students that I just need to connect with more, sometimes through a lunch bunch or things like that, really helps make it a little bit easier. Thanks for listening.